Good afternoon, and welcome to K2's Road to Excellence with Excel, Part 16, and our partner for today, which is ReceiptBank. This is Alan Salmon, and I'm pleased that so many of you are with me today. And for those of you who were concerned last week when my good friend and partner Marilyn Benninger was away, she is back today. And she is your go-to person, of course, for technical issues and for questions. And speaking of that, 10 days from today, we will send all of you the recording, my teaching notes, my teaching files, and the questions. You can submit questions anytime, and you do it through the chat window. After the webinar is over, Marilyn will send both Damien and myself any questions. We will answer them, and they will be included when we send you the recording. Next, after you exit today, there's a very short survey. I think it's 5 questions, and it shouldn't take you any more than 45 seconds to complete, and we would urge you to do that. The final thing, of course, is your CPD credits. 4 times today, Marilyn is going to stop Damien and myself and put up a polling question. And for any of you that are new to this mini webinar, the polling questions are multiple choice, usually 4 or 5 responses, and you don't have to get it right, but you do have to check on one of the answers and click submit, because that time stamps your record, and we know that at that point in time, you are in attendance. If you get recorded as answering 3 of the 4 questions, you'll get an hour of verifiable CPDs. If you don't, you'll get 1 hour of non-verifiable. Now, today's topic is all about advanced formatting and a couple of tools. And for the first time, I think, I can't remember when, those of you on 2007 will not be able to deal with a tool called a slicer. Now, there is an alternative for you, and I will point that out to you. And in one of the slicer examples that I'm going to use, only those of you that are on 2013 and 2016 will be able to use the tool. But again, I iterate that regardless of what version is on, you're going to accomplish the same thing. So without further ado, let's go to here. And by the way, that's not the right sheet. So let's go to here. Now, there's nothing magic about this. It's sales over the year for a certain company. And we all have spreadsheets like this. And the challenge is to make sense of these numbers. And a common way to do it, of course, is to use conditional formatting. So highlight for me things that meet a certain condition. And for my first example, the condition is this. I'm going to highlight just the data, not the totals. And here's the conditions. I want to visually see any month where the sales were over 30,000, and also any month where the sales were less than 7,000. So I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm going to click on Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to highlight Cell Rules. For the first time, greater than. Now it's done a standard default of that, but I want 30,000. There we go. So notice that as I change this number, there, greater than 3, everything's greater than 3. Greater than 3,000. Nothing. Greater than 30,000. There we go. Now those are positive, so I don't like pink or red fill as a background. I'm going to click on the down arrow and I'm going to click on green fill with dark green text. Love it. I'm going to go right back in again and do less than. And I'm going to do less than 7,000. There we go. Now understand that the conditional formatting here is dynamic. So if I change this to 29,000, look what happens. If I change this to 7,001, look what happens. So there's one way of doing it. But before I do the next one, I'm brain dead today, and I forgot to do the first polling question. Marilyn, can you put it up, please?
Not a problem, Alan. I was just enjoying your content. So good morning or afternoon, folks, wherever you are. Today, you should now see your screen being replaced with a blue one. We're asking a question. Which of the following Excel tools have you used? And you get to choose more than one. Conditional formatting, slicers, scenario manager, text functions, or maybe you've had none of the above just yet, but that's why you're here with us today. We keep our polls open until we hit 90%, and we're right there. Thanks, everyone. So I'll be closing the poll for you in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll. I'm going to share those results with you, Alan.
Oh, I'm pleased that the number of conditional formatting, but I think I may add some bells and whistles to it. Slicers, 9%. Text functions. Well, I have a couple of text functions to share with you. So let's move on, and let's move on this way with this. Now, there's nothing magic here. It's a check payment ledger or report, and I think there's a lot of rows. Well, 192 is not a lot. But here's the challenge that I face. And you all face it in certain times with a data set. And that question is, are there any duplicate check numbers? Now, you could easily go to data and go over here to remove duplicates. But if you do that, it's going to remove both duplicates, and there's no way around it. So from my perspective, a better way is to go to conditional formatting and go here, duplicate values. Yeah, we can fill it. And by the way, I missed a step here. I need to do this, which is highlight this. And now I'll go to conditional formatting, duplicate values. And yes, we'll do a light red fill with dark red text. And as you can see, the bottom one is duplicate. And I have some duplicates here. But I can see visually that 101 and 101 is a duplicate, and so on. But I need to see all of the pink. That's really easy to do. I just go to sort and filter. I do a custom sort in this case, and I want to do it on the number tab. And I don't want cell values. I want the cell color. And on top, I want the pink. Done. So there it is. And now I have the choice of which one of these do I want to delete. So I'll do it visually. And by the way, I use this all the time. As many of you know, and I hope you're registered, in 2 weeks we will launch the 26th annual Accounting Technology Tour. And we currently have 1,200 people registered. So on Thursday, Marilyn is going to send out an invite to all of our people on our database, which will include the 1,200. And we know from past experience that people get irritated if we ask them to sign up for something they've already signed up for. So late tomorrow, Marilyn is going to send me the list of all of the people who have registered. And I'm going to add that to the complete list. And then I'm going to do what I just did here. And I will delete all of the pink cells. Why? Because they're registered. And then I will upload that and use that for the mailing. Let's move on to this. And this one is a much larger data set, 2881. So an interesting question that I ask is this: what's the top 5 items that have sold? What's the top 10? What's the top 20? So again, I'm going to select this row. I'm going to go to conditional formatting. I'm going to go to top and bottom rules. And notice I can select, tell Excel, give me the top 10, give me the top 10%, bottom, and so on. Well, I only want the top 10 items. And notice I could vary it down from there or up from here. And I'm happy to see it with like, let's do green. Let's do yellow for a change. Now this takes a while to do, so I'm going to move on while it's doing this. And I'm going to move on to this file and introduce the concept of slicers. And before I do that, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to insert a column here and you'll see why. Now I'm going to do something with this. And by the way, this is a table. And then you'll notice that tables come with filters and so on. So a slicer is nothing more than an elegant filter. So now you will understand why all of you, regardless of the version, will be able to do filters. Okay, so let me introduce you to slicers, and that is only available in 2013 and 2016. So I select any cell within the table and I go to insert and I go way over here to slicer and I click. And notice what I get. There's the column headers, month, region, product, amount. Well, I want a slicer for the region and the product. Click. So we will move this over here and then we'll move this here and this up here. And we'll do the same thing with product. There we go. All right, so I'm interested in the Midwest. Do I go here? Nope. I click on Midwest. I want New England. I click there. I want to see that one. I click there. So that's automatically done those filters. But what if I want to do 2 regions? Well, I hold down the control key and click on Southeast. I want to do this one, creams. I hold down the control key and I do that. So I click on that little red thing here and I'm right back to where I was. So there's my 4. And notice it automatically inserted a scroll bar. So there's all my products. Now, when do I use slicers? Well, when I'm doing something. But if I'm doing a report like this for a client, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to use slicers on the key thing, because it's a lot easier for me to say to a client, click on New England and there you go, than it is to try to train them on how to use filters. So again, a comment that if you are on 2007 and 2010, you've got to use the filters. Now, let's go to a pivot table, which I've got here. And now some good news for those of you on 2010. Slicers actually came into effect in 2010, but only on pivot tables. So if you're on 10, 13, or 16, you're good to go. So we do it exactly the same way. I don't need that. I go to Insert, and I go to Slicer. And what do I want this time? Well, how about region and quarters? Okay. So we'll put region right there. Bring this up. And we'll do quarters like this. So I want the Midwest, and I want quarter one. No, I don't. I want quarter three. And by the way, you'll notice up here that we now have a new ribbon called Slicer Tools. And I don't work with this usually, other than here, which is, well, let's do it this way. So it's automatically added color. Let's do it this way. So there's slicers in tables, 2013, 2016, in pivot tables, 10, 13, and 16. I hope you'll try that, because from my perspective, it's a great thing to add to your tricks. Moving on, I'm going to spend a little bit of time. Some of this will be review, working with text. So let's look at the first example. I've got Vancouver and Montreal, and I want to combine them in here. So the simple solution, and I did this in my dum-dum days, was to say A5, and the ampersand is the join command, join A5 to B5, which it duly does. I need the equal sign there, because I didn't tell it to add a space. So if I add a space, it's the first cell, ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand B8, and that gives me that. And if I really want to be fancy, I'll do quote, comma, space, quote, and I'll get that, Vancouver, comma, Montreal. And then look at this cell. And this frequently happens when you're importing stuff from accounting programs. You'll notice there's a double space between quarter and earnings. And if you're like me, you may at one point in time spend a lot of time cleaning that up. Well, there's a wonderful formula in Excel called equal trim. And I say equal trim A15, like the formula in that cell, and voila, it's cleaned it up. So the way I would work with this is, if I have a column with double spaces, I will add a new column here and use the trim, and then I will copy the results back to the first column, but do it with paste values, and then I'll delete the new column. Now, there are three kinds of text in Excel: all uppercase, all lowercase, and what is called proper. And proper capitalizes the first letter of each word. So I want to convert this from all caps to proper. So I say proper A18, and this is what we get. And then finally, when I'm doing an extract or I just want a piece of a text statement, I have three ways to do that. I can use the left function, the right function, or the mid function. So what I want here is just Canada Inc. So I want to count back from this point. So I say equal right, what's in A21, comma, only display 11 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we've got it. But what if I only want to print the first 11 characters? Well, it's exactly the same. Left A22, and the number happens to be the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then what if it's in the middle? Well, it's a little more complex, and I use the mid function. So equal mid A23, where do I want to start the text selection? At the fifth spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to start here, and we're going to count 11, and that will do it. So I hope there's a couple of these functions that you'll find useful in your work. And I want to wrap up with some work on date functions. So I have this spreadsheet here, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So if I want to display the current date, it's just equal today, bracket, bracket. There we go. But if I want to get elegant and say today is Tuesday, September 18th, 2018, the formula is there. So when I bring this down to what actually is happening, I'm telling Excel to print bracket or quote, so it's, now you know it's text. And then to that, I want to join the date. Well, I hope most of you know that a date like this in Excel is a number. So let's find out what that number is. There we go. So according to Excel, today is 43,361. So what's 1? January the 1st, 1900. So what we have here is that we want to combine a number and a date. And that's like oil and vinegar. You can't do it. But there is a function in Excel called the text function. So what we're saying here is convert the today's date to text and then print the full day of the week, comma, the full month, the day, and the full year. And remember that you're going to get this file with my notes. The next issue is this. I run across, particularly when I'm importing stuff, where I have the year in one column, I have the month in another column, and I have the day in another, and I want to put them together so it prints that. And that's really easy. I use the date function, equal date, B9, comma, C9, comma, D9, which basically says, put them all together, and we got that. To generate a set of consecutive dates, we use the autofill function. So I start with the 18th of September. I go to the bottom right-hand corner to the plus sign, hold down my left mouse, and there we go. If I want to calculate the number of days between two dates, that's basic math. Equal C19 minus D19. And of course, those are numbers, so the answer is 94. Now, calculating a person's age is an interesting challenge because if you just do my birth date or today minus my birth date, I will get the years in a fraction of a year, meaning a decimal place. So there's a really weird function in Excel called year frac, which ends up providing you with the how old you are without the fraction. And I want to convert the number that comes to an integer, meaning with no decimal places. So I say, convert this, the year frac on today, D21, comma 1. And I get 43. And by the way, that's the age I wish I was. And then for the last function, I want to calculate the week number. Now, what's the week number? It's the number of the actual week starting with 1 in the first week in January. And I use that sometimes in advanced calculation. And there, guess what? There is a function called week number. So run the week number on D23, 215, or April the 6th, 2015, and you'll find it's 15. So there again, I hope I provided you with some useful date functions and a reminder that you will get my notes and these teaching files when Marilyn sends out the email. So that's a wrap for me, Marilyn. Can we do the last polling question, please?
Absolutely, Alan. Thanks for that. I debated whether I would put up a poll that said who wishes they were 43 again, but let's not do that. Let's do word instead. So, folks, which of the following word features do you use? And again, you can check all that apply. We're asking if you've used tables, inserting an Excel range into a Word or PowerPoint, whether you work with tabs and indents, screenshots in Word, or possibly none of the above. And I think I know why we're asking this question, Alan, but just let's get the results and then you can share the news. So we're right at 90%. Thanks for your feedback, folks. I'm going to count you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll. And there are your results, Alan.
All right. So I think that for all of these, and this is a pleasant, not surprise, but a present revealing, I'm going to add to your knowledge of all of these items in next week's webinar. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for a while. I'll be back at the end, and Marilyn is going to do the handoff to Damien.
Thanks, Alan. So, Damien, look at there you are. Can we just, let me just unmute you. We see
Marilyn,
your screen.
Yep, I've gone into full screen and just double checking that you can hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear, you have the comm.
Fantastic. Alan and Marilyn, thank you very much. Just interestingly, and quite scarily, only 15 weeks left until the end of the year. So I quickly threw Alan's formula into Excel there, and yes, quite scarily, only 15 weeks left until the end of the year. So a lot to do, no doubt. But folks, thank you very much for having the opportunity to share a little bit about what ReceiptBank is doing and how ReceiptBank is helping accounting, bookkeeping processes, whether it's public accounting, public bookkeeping, or for the internal CFOs and controllers and bookkeepers across Canada. So thank you very much for your time. Importantly, my contact details are down there. So if you do have any follow-up emails, please don't hesitate to get in touch. A little bit about ReceiptBank. We currently work with more than 25,000 accountants and bookkeepers around the world, sole practitioner firms all the way up to the BDOs and the Price Waterhouses of the world, helping them leverage technology to automate more and more of the functions within the bookkeeping workflow. Through the 25,000 accountant and bookkeepers, we work with more than 117,000 small, medium-sized business clients. Interestingly, more than 500 small, medium-sized businesses are being put onto ReceiptBank by their accountant and bookkeeper a day across the globe, which I think is exciting. And we process more than 4.5 million documents per month. So that's receipts, credit notes, supplier bills, bank statements as well. The volume continues to grow, and the processing time is somewhere between 45 seconds for that Tim Hortons receipt or the WestJet receipt that we've seen tens of thousands of, all the way through to about 45 minutes, which is a supplier that we haven't seen before, the handwritten tip, for example. Our objective is to get the data prepared for your review and get it ready for the general ledger as quickly as possible. We don't want our accountants and bookkeepers spending their valuable time doing the document management, doing the data entry. Instead, let the machines do that heavy lifting so that it can free up your time for the review, for the ability to add some more valuable insights into the relationship. So that's what we're really here to do, is to get the information from the client, get the information that is required to fulfill the bookkeeping, the client accounting, and get that prepared, ready for your review so that you can add value back to that data. So if you're the internal accountant, don't spend your time processing all of the information. Instead, let the machines do the heavy lifting of it so you can do the analysis on those numbers. And same thing for the public bookkeeping and public accounting folks. Get the information off your clients as quickly as possible, in as close to real time as possible, so that you can then add value back to that data, help them understand what's actually going on in the client's businesses. When we look at the accounting process, we find a lot of time is misspent. There's a lot of time spent collecting the information from team members that are out in the field, collecting information from clients that are geographically dispersed. We also see an enormous amount of time being spent on moving that information off the source document into the general ledger. And obviously, before we can provide any analysis or any insights, we've got to get those debits and credits taken care of. So how can we use machines? How can we use technology like ReceiptBank to take care of that? And then last but not least, we spend a lot of time chasing our team members, chasing our clients for additional information, particularly the supporting information for those GST returns. Supporting information for those expense reimbursements. All of that is, again, time misspent when we are looking at where do we spend time in our day. So how do we make that easier for you? And Marilyn, maybe now is a good time to do one of those poll questions, maybe just asking the audience in terms of the number of clients that they do the bookkeeping for, if you wouldn't mind launching that, please.
My pleasure, Damien. So folks, you should see a third poll. We're asking you, how many bookkeeping clients do you currently work with? And the range is there, quite evident. 1 to 10, 11, 25, 26 to 100, or maybe you're a larger firm with more than 100 bookkeeping clients. Some of you on the call today may not be working with bookkeeping clients today, and we'd like to know that as well. Nice and easy poll. Thanks everyone. We're already at 90%. So I'll be counting you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll now. Are you able to see those results, Damien?
Yep, I am. Thank you very much, Marilyn. I appreciate that. So yeah, let's head back to the slides, and thank you very much, folks, for your responses. So let me make sure my slides are back up. So let's actually think about the workflow in our current office, in our current collecting information, whether that's internally or from clients. We spend an enormous amount of time waiting for source documents to arrive. And the unfortunate thing about that is we have to wait until these documents arrive until we can get working on the monthly write-up. And if we think about it, if today was the 18th of the month, there's no reason why we shouldn't have 18 days worth of information in the general ledger, rather than waiting until the 4th or 5th of the following month when the bank statement arrives and before we actually get started getting information in. So let's think about the old way in terms of how we're getting information. We spend a lot of time collecting the documents and organizing them. In the accounting firm that I worked in, we would have at least 45 minutes on the timesheet before we'd even started getting information into the general ledger, just organizing all of the information. I know my sister and her expense reports, she would spend typically half a Sunday once a month, organizing all of her expenses for her expense report. Interestingly, she wasn't tracking all of her expenses. So a lot of time collecting the information, whether that's driving to a client, whether that's waiting for the envelope from clients to arrive. So we spend a lot of time collecting them, a lot of time organizing them, and then we've got to chase missing items or lost records. We can't claim that GST if we don't have the receipt for it. What was the Costco receipt for? Did we need to split some of that to code to personal? Do we need to split that between different departments and different divisions? I would remember that we would send Excel spreadsheets with 35 different queries that we had on transactions. And so again, we get 95% of the accounting done, but then we'd have to wait for the client or one of the team members to actually get a response to us before we could actually close out the books. So a lot of time being lost in various steps of the write-up process. So let's look at how we can turn that to instant document capture. You, your clients, your team members, the vast majority of them are using their mobile phone, their smartphone, to run more and more aspects of their business, of their daily lives. Let's get the app in their hands so that they can take a photo of that Tim Hortons receipt. They can write or identify a particular client that it was with. If they're at Home Depot, they can come in and write the particular project on there, identify a particular project, and then it's captured. And once we've captured it, the OCR and the machines get to work recognizing all of the information on it. The email in, so the Uber receipt, if we're heading out to see a client and we've got the Uber receipt comes to our email address, let's forward that not to the controller, not to the bookkeeper, but to a central localized inbox where all of the information is coming into. Again, when the Rogers bill arrives, and it might be paper, but if that Rogers bill arrives, let's scan it as quickly as possible, get it into the system. And then last but not least, let's connect to our suppliers, to our vendors, let's connect to the bank and go and get the information that we need. Because the key thing here is this instant document capture. As soon as we capture it, we can get to work recognizing all of the information. We'll recognize the date, we'll recognize the supplier name, the amount, the GST, PST or GST. We'll recognize the invoice number if it's a part of AP. So let us do all of that preparation for you, and this is where we look at the machines doing that heavy lifting. Because if we can do that, we're going to minimize the number of lost items. So we are going to minimize, so in addition to minimizing the number of lost items, we're going to minimize our tax liability. I go back to my sister's example. When she started using the automated system of ReceiptBank, her expense claims increased by 30%. And the controller came to her and said, your expense reports are up 30%. And her reply to the controller was, yeah, because now I'm actually tracking everything. I saw an Intuit Firm of the Future blog, and they estimated, particularly self-employed individuals, they're missing out on as much as 23% of their expenses because they don't have an easy way of capturing everything. Instant data delivery is critical because, again, if we've got the expense information, we got the AP information, we can get the general ledger information. Imagine logging into your accounting software and your P&L is up to date because the information is flowing in real time. Imagine the decision making, imagine the insights that you'll be able to gain as a result of this instant data delivery. And then last but not least, just this paperless storage. If we can get out of all of that paper, it's going to make our lives infinitely easier. Julianne Holloway, her partner, Julianne and Strathbogie Bookkeeping is one of our accounting partners that we work with. Her partner got relocated to rural Victoria from Sydney, and her immediate thought was, oh my goodness, I have to sell my business and start up again. But she moved onto the cloud. She went paperless. She let the cloud software, so in this case, I think it was ReceiptBank talking to Xero, do the heavy lifting of collecting all of the information and automating the data entry. So now her biggest client, still in Sydney, it's a contractor. They photograph all of the receipts, and now the information is flowing into her office in rural Victoria in real time. Previously, she had to wait till the envelopes all came in from her clients' staff that were out in the field. She also gets her clients' suppliers to email directly into ReceiptBank. And the big benefit for suppliers, well, the big benefit that she states is that they're going to get paid quicker because the AP information is into the system quicker. So she's helped her clients go paperless, and in doing so, she's been able to speed up the information flow into the firm, because previously she was sitting idle waiting for the stuff to get in, and then she had an enormous amount of data entry to do to get the information into the system. Let's move on now to the data entry side of things. It's time consuming, it's prone to human error, but it's a necessary evil. I remember when the American Express credit card statement would come, again, 4 days after the period closed, so I had to wait until that arrived before I got going. It would then snake its way around the office, and people would fill in meals, travel, office supplies, subscriptions, and then some poor soul, normally myself, would have to go in and physically enter all of that information in. Lo and behold, at the end, there would be a transcription error. And also what would happen is 1 month I'd code something to office supplies, the next month I'd code it to subscriptions, and probably the next month I'd code it to memberships. So there was just reviewing the work for errors in the physical data entry, and then B, reviewing the work for coding errors. Again, time being lost, time being misspent, physically doing data entry. Obviously with bank feeds and IIF files, that changes a lot of the activity, but the human error associated with coding is huge. Now what we want to do is we want to look at the source document, let the technology read the source document and pick up what it can. And in this instance, it's identified that it's a receipt, the date, the supplier. Interestingly, it's actually picked up that it was in GBP, so pound sterling, and it's converted it back to the home-based currency, which in this case is US dollars. So now the machine is preparing all of the information for your review. And now what we want to do is we want to help the machine learn by coding it, categorizing it appropriately. Now the machines will know how to deal with this particular supplier moving forward. Our time and motion studies estimate that you can review 4 times the amount of work that you can prepare. So that's the key element of getting the technology doing the heavy lifting. It's going to increase your capacity. It's going to free up an enormous amount of time that you can allocate elsewhere. The information is going to be coming in more accurately because it's coming in real time. We can ask questions immediately, and it allows you, whether you're the bookkeeper, the controller, the accountant, the outside CPA, more time to focus on adding value back to that information and the data. One of our partners, he hit a ceiling of 45 clients that he was doing the monthly bookkeeping for. It was a manual desktop paper environment, and he moved them onto a cloud-based system and a paperless system. So I think he used Sage Business Cloud plus ReceiptBank. In 18 months, he tripled his client base without adding any additional overhead. So think about that. If you freed up and unlocked all of that time spent chasing clients, waiting for clients, data entry, fixing errors, what would you do with that time? And in this instance, Murat Kurt here, he focused on growing his business, and he tripled the client base without any additional staff to get that work done. So I think that's a really exciting example of how Murat's let the machines do the heavy lifting so he can focus on growing his business. Last but not least, management of these documents is really important. In a traditional environment, it's non-accessible, it's unsecured, and it's unstructured. So I physically have to walk down a hallway into a filing cabinet room. I have to double click into folders, remember where I saved something. I'm not sure, I'm based here in Washington, DC, but we just had the hurricanes in North Carolina. Businesses that weren't paperless, that weren't in the cloud, they're waiting for their servers to dry out. They're waiting for their filing cabinets to dry out. This is a real concern for business continuity. And as trusted advisors, we should be talking to our clients, we should be talking to our business about making sure that our financial records are easily accessible, are secure, and they're in a structured format. For example, we can actually go in and filter based on all of those fields that we picked up on. When the CRA or Revenue Quebec comes knocking, they're always looking for a particular amount in a particular date range from a particular supplier. I don't want to have to go into each and every supplier folder to find the particular documents. Instead, I can filter and search based on the date range, based on the amount range, and based on the category. So I might need to look for meals and entertainment in a certain date range, and I can then download all of that information to a flash drive. I can email it to the auditor. I've actually seen some accountants even create an account for the auditor to come in and find what they need. And I've been told by a number of folks that have had the CRA audit, actually some CRA auditors, where they've actually said, when the auditor comes in and sees the robust document management system in place, they're less likely to go looking. However, when it's a state of disarray, more often than not, they're going to be coming in and looking at things very specifically. We want a connected system that is secure, that is efficient and searchable, and is geographically flexible. Just because you're based in Vancouver doesn't mean that you shouldn't be recruiting team members and clients across the country. And again, just because you're headquartered in Calgary doesn't mean that because you relocate, you can't remain employed with that particular provider. So some things to be thinking about this one connected system where machines do the heavy lifting. Folks, let me spend 90 seconds and go live because I know we're sort of coming up at the time clock here. We've got the blue screen there. Blue screen is all of our clients in one central location. This allows us just to manage our clients wherever we are. Let's go in and have a look. In this example, we go into the Georgian guest house. You can see that this particular client, the information is being picked up in GBP, but let's go in and have a look at how we get information into the system. That mobile app, so about 60% of the documents coming in to ReceiptBank every month, they're coming in via the mobile app. Our dedicated email address where we can customize. So rather than it coming to my inbox as the controller, send it to this one central location and we will see all the different users and all of their different submissions. Scan and upload, make sure we click that multiple items PDF, and one scan will get everything in. And then last but not least, we've got our trip catcher there, but our invoice fetch as well, where we can connect to more than 2,000 suppliers, Rogers, TELUS, the utilities, Amazon, which is a key one, and we'll go and get it for you and then put it in that inbox and get it processed for you. Let's have a look at the Uber receipt. On the left-hand side, we can see it, and on the right-hand side, all of the information that we've picked up, including, in this instance, VAT, but that would be GST or PST, HST, etc. Once we're ready, we click on Publish, and we send that over, in this example, to QuickBooks Online. We've populated the general ledger for you. So again, it's just ready for your review rather than your actual preparation population. Also, we put the document down there as well, which means that if the business owner needs to double check anything, verify anything, they're able to do that. One of our partners uncovered about $200,000 worth of fraud because they didn't have good documentation practices when it was their internal bookkeeper. So a really interesting example of putting the source document alongside the transaction. We could just download everything to Excel, and if we needed to then export that to spreadsheet and do any of the manipulation. So your clients, you might not even have a general ledger to send information to, but instead we can send all of the categorization, the GST, the PST, all of that information to an Excel spreadsheet, and then can be manipulated accordingly. And that, folks, in a nutshell, is ReceiptBank and how it does the preparation and the heavy lifting of the write-up function. Now we come into a review process. Let's go in and have a look. Let's go back to that presentation. And what I'll do, Alan, is I will hand over to you and say thank you very much for this opportunity, as I know we're at the time. But maybe, Marilyn, if we could launch that final question and ask, are you interested in finding out more about the ReceiptBank Partner Program?
Thanks, Damien. I'm doing that just now. So, folks, you should see our final poll question on a scale of 1 through 5. Please give us your feedback about ReceiptBank. Number 1 would tell us that you're already a partner, and you can see 2 through 5. Fascinating information. We're getting lots of comments through the chat window today, Damien. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolute pleasure.
Love your point about what people are experiencing today, which is the impact of the weather and emergency preparedness. So great points you made there.
But also, just as we're waiting for that poll, Marilyn, just think about, has time been lost to snow days during the winter, to weather incidents? And that doesn't have to be the case. We can still be productive wherever we choose to work. So this cloud-enabled system is one way in which we can make sure the accounting and write-up function of the business happens regardless of what's happening outside our window.
Absolutely. And there's an expression, it might be an old one now, but the mail must go through. And here in Canada, that's not going to be true. We're keeping ourselves and our fingers crossed of about yet another looming postal strike that's coming up on September 26th. So all good things you're bringing to us with ReceiptBank. Thanks, Damien. We're at 90%, folks, so I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let's just share those results. You've got some interest there, Damien, and a couple of partners on the line.
Fantastic, Marilyn. Thank you. And Alan, thank you very much for this opportunity. But folks, my contact details are down there. If you're an accounting firm or would like to test this out for your own accounting function within your business, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Damon. We're going to change over to Alan. Alan, are you there?
I certainly am. Thanks. And there we go. Now for the wrap. For those of you that attended last week's webinar, I introduced you to a new service that I'm going to launch on October the 1st, and it now has a name. It's going to be called Alan's IT Assessment Service. And the facts of life are that 9 out of 10 computer networks and standalone computers have potentially serious IT problems sitting undetected. And my service is going to be an affordable way where you can do a health test on your computers. I sent out a note to those of you that indicated that you were interested or maybe were interested today. And there will be more information coming out probably late next week. So thank you for that. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Marilyn and Damien. It's a wrap.